My daughter-in-law called the hotel, snapping, "Cancel my mother-in-law's room, we need 5 for our family." The receptionist replied politely, "Of course, ma'am, let me just confirm with the owner." Seconds later, I stepped out from the office with a smile. "Hello, dear. Was there a problem with your reservation?" Her face drained of color as the entire lobby fell into stunned silence. You ever found out someone tried to erase you from your own family event without even telling you? Well, that's exactly what happened to me. My daughter-in-law called the hotel and tried to cancel my reservation behind my back. But what happened when I walked in and caught her red-handed? Trust me, you won't believe how this showdown ended. Stay with me because this story takes a turn you'll never see coming. It was one of those golden Friday afternoons that make you grateful to be alive. The sun was streaming through my kitchen window, glinting off the stack of Tupperware containers I'd lined up on the counter. I was elbowed deep in potato salad, my famous recipe, the one everyone in the Miller family claims to love, even if I suspect a few of them just move it around their plates. The house was filled with the comforting scent of boiled eggs and sweet pickles, and I was humming along to a little Fleetwood Mac on the radio. I just finished folding the last of the matching family reunion t-shirts. This year's color was a blinding neon green chosen by my granddaughter, Emma, who insisted it was so fun and retro. I was looking forward to seeing everyone, even if I knew there'd be at least one heated debate about politics at dinner. That's just how it goes with the Millers. I'd been planning this trip for months. Every year we all gather at the Willow Inn, a charming little place just outside of town with creaky floors, homemade cinnamon rolls, and a porch swing that overlooks the lake. I always book the same room, room 204, with the best view of the water, and more importantly, the only bathtub big enough for a proper soak after a long day of family togetherness. I'd called ahead in January just to be sure. The reservation was set, the bags were packed, and I was ready for a little peace and quiet before the family chaos began. That's when the phone rang. I wiped my hands on a dish towel and picked it up, expecting it to be my sister, Carol, calling to remind me for the 100th time not to forget her gluten-free crackers. Instead, I heard a young man's voice, polite but nervous. "Hello, is this Mrs. Miller?" "Yes, this is she," I replied, already feeling a little suspicious. You know how you can just tell when something's off? "This is Tyler from the Willow Inn. I'm calling about your reservation for this weekend." My heart skipped a beat. Had something happened to the inn? Was there a plumbing disaster? A fire? I braced myself. There's been a request to cancel your reservation," Tyler continued, his voice faltering. "Your daughter-in-law, Lauren, called and said she needs 5 rooms for her family instead." For a moment, I just stood there, potato salad forgotten, the phone pressed to my ear. Cancel my room? Was this some kind of joke? I could feel my blood pressure rising, that familiar flush creeping up my neck. Was I being uninvited from my own family reunion? Or was this just another one of Lauren's organizational improvements? Her way of streamlining things, as she likes to say, which usually means making everything more complicated for the rest of us. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady. "Tyler, can you tell me exactly what Lauren said?" He hesitated, clearly uncomfortable. "She said she was handling the family's accommodations this year and that she needed to make some changes. She asked to cancel your room and book 5 rooms under her name instead." I could almost picture Lauren sitting at her kitchen island with her color-coded planner, her phone in one hand and a latte in the other, making decisions for everyone. She's always been a take-charge kind of person, which I usually appreciate, except when it means I get steamrolled in the process. I remembered last Thanksgiving when she decided we should all go around the table and share what we were grateful for. And my son Ben ended up confessing he was grateful for noise-canceling headphones. The woman means well, but sometimes her improvements feel a little too much like a hostile takeover. "Tyler, please don't cancel anything just yet," I said, trying to sound calm and collected, even though my mind was racing. "I'll call you back in a few minutes." He sounded relieved. "Of course, Mrs. Miller, I'll hold your reservation until I hear from you." I hung up the phone and sat down at the kitchen table, my hands shaking just a little. Was this really happening? Was I being pushed out of my own family's tradition? I tried to give Lauren the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Or maybe she thought she was making things easier for everyone. But the more I thought about it, the more I felt that familiar sting of being left out, of not being consulted, of having my plans upended without so much as a phone call. I glanced at the stack of t-shirts, the potato salad, the carefully packed suitcase by the door. I'd put so much love and effort into making this weekend special, and now it felt like it was all slipping through my fingers. I thought about calling Ben, but I knew he'd just say, "Mom, let Lauren handle it." And I wasn't ready to hear that. Not yet. Instead, I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and decided I wasn't going to let this go without a fight. I was still the matriarch of this family, and I wasn't about to be sidelined by a scheduling snafu or by my well-meaning but overzealous daughter-in-law. I picked up the phone, dialed the Willow Inn, and asked to speak to the manager. If Lauren wanted 5 rooms, she could have them, but she wasn't getting mine. Not without a conversation, at least. As I waited on hold, I couldn't help but wonder, was this the start of a new family tradition? One where I was no longer in charge, or was it just another bump in the road? Another story to laugh about over next year's potato salad? Either way, I was determined to find out, and as the music played, I felt a spark of excitement, maybe even a little mischief stirring inside me. This reunion was about to get interesting. I could tell from the tremble in Tyler's voice that he'd rather be anywhere else, maybe even scrubbing toilets or folding towels in the laundry room than stuck in the middle of a Miller family standoff. Ma'am, should I go ahead and cancel or?" he asked, his words trailing off into a pitiful silence. I could almost picture him clutching the phone with one hand and nervously glancing at the reservation screen, probably wishing he'd called in sick that day. And in the background, I could just imagine Lauren tapping her perfectly manicured nails on the counter, rolling her eyes in that way only a daughter-in-law can, convinced she was saving the day with her efficient planning. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my voice steady and my temper in check. "Don't do anything yet, Tyler. I'll be right there." I hung up before he could respond, grabbed my purse, and marched out the door, leaving the potato salad and the neon green t-shirts behind. As I slid into the driver's seat, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. Cheeks flushed, eyes narrowed, lips pressed into a determined line. I looked like a woman on a mission, and in that moment, I absolutely was. The drive to the Willow Inn felt longer than usual, even though it was only 15 minutes down the road. My mind was racing the whole way, replaying every interaction I'd ever had with Lauren, searching for clues. Was I being replaced by a more modern mother-in-law? Was this her way of gently nudging me out of the family spotlight, making room for her own traditions and her own way of doing things? Or was this payback for that time I'd made a joke about her overcooked turkey at Thanksgiving? I hadn't meant anything by it. Honestly, I thought we were all laughing together. But maybe she'd taken it to heart. Or maybe, just maybe, this was all a big misunderstanding. A simple mix-up in the chaos of planning a family reunion. I tried to give Lauren the benefit of the doubt, but the sting of being left out was hard to ignore. I thought about all the times I'd gone out of my way to make her feel welcome. From the first awkward holiday dinner, when she and Ben were newlyweds, to the time I'd babysat the kids so she could have a spa day with her friends. I'd always tried to be the kind of mother-in-law who supported, not smothered. But lately, it felt like she was determined to take over every aspect of our family gatherings, from the menu to the seating chart to the hotel reservations. Was this just her way of showing love, or was she trying to push me aside? As I pulled into the Willow Inn's gravel parking lot, I took another deep breath and tried to steady my nerves. The inn looked just as charming as ever, with its white clapboard siding, hanging flower baskets, and the old porch swing creaking gently in the breeze. I'd always loved this place, not just for its cozy rooms and homemade breakfasts, but for the memories we'd made here over the years, late-night card games, impromptu sing-alongs, and quiet moments watching the sunset over the lake. I wasn't ready to give that up, not without a fight. Inside, the lobby was cool and quiet, the air scented with fresh coffee and cinnamon. Tyler was standing behind the front desk, looking like a deer caught in headlights. He gave me a nervous smile as I approached, his fingers fidgeting with a stack of reservation cards. "Mrs. Miller," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I'm so sorry about the confusion," I smiled, trying to put him at ease. "It's not your fault, Tyler. Family reunions can be complicated." I glanced around, half expecting to see Lauren sweeping in with her clipboard and her color-coded pens. But the lobby was empty, except for a couple of guests reading newspapers by the fireplace. Tyler cleared his throat. Your daughter-in-law was very insistent. She said she wanted to handle all the arrangements this year. She even brought a list. He held up a piece of paper covered in neat handwriting and highlighted in 3 different colors. I had to admit the woman was thorough. I sighed, feeling a mix of frustration and admiration. That sounds like Lauren. She means well, but sometimes she forgets that other people have plans too. Tyler nodded sympathetically. I didn't want to cancel your room without checking with you first. You've been coming here for years. I felt a wave of gratitude for this young man caught in the crossfire of Miller family politics. Thank you, Tyler. I appreciate that. I glanced at the reservation book, my name still neatly written in the slot for room 204. Let's keep my room for now. I'll talk to Lauren and see what's really going on. As I turned to leave, I caught a glimpse of myself in the lobby mirror, shoulders squared, chin lifted, eyes bright with determination. I wasn't just fighting for a hotel room. I was fighting for my place in this family, for the traditions and memories that mattered to me. Maybe Lauren was trying to help, or maybe she was trying to take over. Either way, I was going to find out. On the drive home, I rehearsed what I'd say to her. Would I be calm and reasonable, or would I let my emotions get the best of me? Would she listen, or would she brush me off with that tight little smile of hers? I didn't know. But one thing was certain. I wasn't going to let myself be sidelined. Not this year. Not ever. As I pulled into my driveway, I felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The family reunion was shaping up to be more dramatic than I'd expected. But maybe that wasn't such a bad thing. After all, what's family without a little drama? And as I unpacked my purse and headed back inside, I couldn't help but smile. This was one story I'd be telling for years to come. I walked into the Willow Inn with my head held high, my purse slung over my shoulder like a badge of honor. The familiar scent of cinnamon rolls and fresh coffee greeted me, but this time it did little to calm my nerves. I could feel the eyes of the front desk staff on me as I strode across the lobby, my heels clicking on the polished wood floor. And there she was, Lauren, standing at the front desk, her phone in one hand, her planner in the other, looking every bit the picture of modern efficiency. But when she saw me, her face drained of color so fast I thought she might faint right there on the spot. She looked paler than a ghost at a tax audit, and for a split second, I almost felt sorry for her. The room went silent. Even the bellhop, who had been wheeling a cart of luggage across the lobby, stopped mid-step and stared. It was as if the entire inn was holding its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. I could feel the tension crackling in the air, and I knew this was it, the moment of truth. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and walked right up to the front desk, refusing to let my nerves show. "Hello, Lauren," I said, keeping my voice as calm and steady as I could manage. "What's the problem?" Lauren's eyes darted from me to the receptionist and back again. She opened her mouth, closed it, then tried again. "Oh, I just thought it would be easier if we all stayed together. I didn't realize you'd already booked your room." Her voice trailed off, and she looked down at her planner as if hoping it might offer her an escape route. Easier for who? I wondered. I could feel a mix of fear and excitement bubbling up inside me. Was this my moment to stand my ground, to remind everyone that I was still the matriarch of this family? Or should I let it go for the sake of family harmony and risk being quietly pushed aside? I glanced at Tyler, the poor receptionist, who looked like he wanted to disappear behind the counter. The bellhop was still frozen in place, his eyes wide with anticipation. I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. Here we were, 2 grown women locked in a silent standoff over a hotel reservation with the entire lobby as our audience. I took another deep breath and softened my tone just a little. "Lauren, I appreciate that you want to keep everyone together, but I've been booking this room for years. It's my little tradition, and I look forward to it all year long. I just wish you'd talk to me before making changes." Lauren's cheeks flushed pink, and she looked genuinely embarrassed. "I'm sorry, Mom. I really didn't mean to step on your toes. I just thought, well, with the kids and Ben's parents coming, it might be easier to have all the rooms under one reservation. I didn't realize how important this was to you." For a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. Maybe I'd been too quick to assume the worst. Maybe Lauren really was just trying to help in her own way. But I also knew that if I let this go, it would set a precedent. One where my traditions, my preferences, and my place in the family could be quietly swept aside in the name of efficiency. I wasn't ready to let that happen. I glanced at Tyler, who was still clutching the reservation book like a lifeline. "Tyler, can you please confirm that my room is still available?" He nodded eagerly. "Yes, Mrs. Miller. Room 204 is still yours, just as you requested." I smiled, feeling a surge of relief and satisfaction. "Thank you, Tyler. I'll keep my reservation and Lauren can have the other 5 rooms for her family. That way, everyone's happy." Lauren let out a breath she'd clearly been holding. "Of course, Mom. I'm glad you're here. I really am. I just get a little carried away sometimes." I reached out and squeezed her hand, hoping to bridge the gap between us. "I know you do, honey, and I appreciate all the work you put into making these reunions special, but sometimes the old ways are worth holding on to." The tension in the room eased, and the bellhop finally resumed his journey across the lobby, shaking his head with a little smile. Tyler looked like he might actually survive the day. And Lauren, to her credit, managed a genuine smile. "You're right, Mom. Next time I'll check with you first." We both laughed, the sound breaking the last of the awkwardness. I realized then that this wasn't just about a hotel room. It was about respect, about communication, and about finding a way to blend old traditions with new ideas. Maybe Lauren and I would never see eye to eye on everything, but we could at least meet in the middle. As we finished up at the front desk, I felt a sense of pride, not just in standing my ground, but in handling the situation with grace. Family can be messy, complicated, and sometimes downright infuriating. But it's also where we find our greatest joys and our most meaningful connections. I knew there would be more bumps in the road ahead, more misunderstandings and power struggles. But for now, I was content. I had my room, my family, and a story I'd be telling for years to come. And as Lauren and I walked out of the lobby together, side by side, I couldn't help but smile. Maybe this family reunion was off to a rocky start, but it was shaping up to be one we'd never forget. I looked at Lauren, then at Tyler, the receptionist, and then back at Lauren again, letting the silence stretch just long enough to make my point. I could see the wheels turning in her head, her lips pressed together in that way she does when she's trying to keep her composure. I decided to go for a little gentle mischief. After all, what's the point of being the matriarch if you can't have a little fun with it? "Well, since you need 5 rooms, I'm sure you won't mind if I keep mine. After all, I did book it first. And besides, who else is going to bring the world's best potato salad?" I said, raising an eyebrow and giving Tyler a wink. The tension in the room broke like a dam. Tyler, who had been looking like he might faint from the stress, let out a relieved laugh. Even Lauren, who had been wound tighter than a drum, managed a weak smile. "Of course, Mom. I'm glad you're here," she said, her voice softening. I could tell she meant it, even if she was still a little embarrassed by the whole ordeal. We all laughed. Well, some of us more than others. I could see the bellhop in the corner, grinning as he pretended to dust a lamp, clearly enjoying the show. And just like that, the air in the lobby shifted. The awkwardness melted away, replaced by a sense of camaraderie and, dare I say, a little bit of respect. I'd stood my ground, but I'd done it with a smile, and I think even Lauren appreciated that. That weekend, the Willow Inn was alive with the sound of the Miller family. Kids ran up and down the hallways, their laughter echoing off the old wooden floors. The adults gathered on the porch in the evenings, sipping sweet tea and swapping stories as the sun set over the lake. The matching neon green t-shirts were a hit, at least with the grandkids who wore them proudly as they played tag on the lawn. Even Lauren got into the spirit, organizing a family scavenger hunt that had everyone, young and old, running around the property searching for clues. And yes, my potato salad made its annual appearance at the big family picnic. I caught Lauren sneaking a second helping, and when she saw me watching, she just grinned and shrugged. "What can I say? It really is the best," she admitted, and I couldn't help but feel a little surge of pride. Maybe we'd had our differences, but in the end, we were family, and that meant finding ways to laugh, forgive and move forward together. On Saturday night, as the kids roasted marshmallows over the fire pit and the grown-ups played cards in the lounge, Lauren came and sat beside me on the porch swing. She was quiet for a moment, watching the fireflies dance in the warm summer air. Then she turned to me, her expression sincere. "I'm sorry about the hotel mix-up, Mom. I really was just trying to make things easier for everyone." I guess I got a little carried away. I patted her hand, feeling the last of my irritation melt away. I know you meant well, Lauren, and I appreciate all the work you put into these reunions, but next time let's just talk things through before making any big changes, okay? She nodded, her eyes shining with relief. Deal. And next year you're in charge of the reservations. I'll stick to the scavenger hunt. We both laughed, the sound mingling with the chorus of crickets and the distant shouts of the kids. At that moment, I realized that standing my ground hadn't just been about a hotel room. It had been about reminding myself and my family that my voice still mattered, that I still had a place at the table, and that the traditions I'd worked so hard to build were worth protecting. The rest of the weekend passed in a happy blur. There were a few minor squabbles. Ben and his brother arguing over who got the last cinnamon roll, Emma refusing to wear her t-shirt because it clashed with her hair, and my sister Carol insisting that her gluten-free crackers were missing, but nothing we couldn't handle. In fact, those little moments of chaos just made the good times sweeter. On Sunday afternoon, as we packed up our cars and said our goodbyes, Lauren gave me a long hug. Thanks for being patient with me, Mom. I know I can be a little much sometimes. I hugged her back, squeezing her tight. We all can, honey. That's what makes us family. As I drove home, the car filled with leftover potato salad and the laughter of my grandkids, I felt a deep sense of contentment. I'd shown up, stood my ground, and reminded everyone, myself included, who really runs the show. And I'd done it without losing my sense of humor or my love for the people who matter most. So, if you ever find yourself in a similar situation, ladies, remember this. Sometimes you just have to show up, speak your truth, and trust that your family will meet you halfway. And if all else fails, bring your best potato salad because in the end, that's what they'll remember.